Coming up on the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast, a transformational project in downtown Evansville. Notre Dame doubles down on innovation. We spotlight a language training company. A big-name Indiana company is helping Guatemalans walk. The latest on the state's graduation pathways program. Purdue is leading a major sports safety effort. And our panel of insiders gives perspective on the biggest stories of the week. Welcome to the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. I'm Andy Ober. Of the many projects going on in downtown Evansville, one in particular is being viewed as a game changer for the city and region. The Stone Family Center for Health Sciences has been years in the making. IU School of Medicine Evansville Director and Associate Dean Steve Becker joined host Gary Dick to talk about the potentially transformational project.
How, in your view, will this be transformational for Evansville and Southwest Indiana?
Well, I do agree with the mayor in that it is a transformational project, but I think the project really reflected a whole regional approach of coming together and building something together that no one individually could have done. So I think the facility is a phenomenal world-class facility, which by its own merits warrants great attention. But in reality, it is all the collaboration and the coming together of our region to support this project that really is transformative. I think it has injected a can-do spirit in southwestern Indiana, and you can see the downtown literally transforming right now. Give us a description as you walk through this building and some of the real amazing features that are in this center. We have world-class technology. We actually have a whole second floor simulation center, over 30,000 square feet, that is an IU-owned space that will supply training, advanced training, to our entire region that was never possible before. On top of that, we have the IU School of Dentistry is putting a dental clinic, a 15, 16-chair dental clinic, and we'll have fourth-year dental students and dental residents in our region. And they're already networking with our hospital partners to supply dental care to the unmet needs of our community. So particularly excited about that. In addition, the Indiana CTSI, the Clinical Translational Science Institute, will have a 4,500 square foot research facility. So we will be able to do clinical research in Evansville that had not been done ever before by tying in through the resources of the statewide CTSI.
You talk about collaboration and the resources. You mentioned the universities, IU, University of Evansville, University of Southern Indiana. Ivy Tech could ultimately come on board as well. And then this hospital collaboration too. So you have a lot of interested parties bringing a lot of resources and interest and passion to the table for this project. Actually, to have the four major hospitals in a 10-county area come together and say, we support medical education. We support improving public health. We support new residency programs in the region. By forming that organization, Southwestern Indiana Graduate Medical Education Consortium, with the IU School of Medicine, I think has taken our project to a completely new level. It's going to allow us to do things in southwestern Indiana that are truly transformative. Talk about, in your view, what you feel this medical center will do to the vibe, the atmosphere, the living situation, if you will, in downtown Evansville. I'm excited to see it because we have, over the past 20, 30 years, tried several different things to revitalize the downtown. I honestly believe this is the one. Our consultants basically believed it was the one thing that could build on everything else that had been done. So in another week, we'll have 400 to 500 graduate students training in the heart of downtown Evansville. Already, the vast majority of my students have moved downtown. You can see the housing shortages occurring in downtown. We have several new projects underway. A second major hotel is under construction. We have a new 150 unit apartment complex being built 3 or 4 blocks from the campus. So you can see all these projects already jump starting. Several new restaurants have come to Main Street.
So I am optimistic that the downtown Evansville core will become the center of what every great region needs, which is a vibrant downtown core.
Still to come, a spotlight on a language and interpreting business, and a medical device giant is doing good work in Guatemala. But first, in its first year of operation, the Idea Center at Notre Dame has blown by its goal by launching 27 startups. That number nearly equals the total amount launched by the university in its entire 175-year history before that. Vice President for Innovation Brian Ritchie came in studio to talk about the startup success.
First of all, we want to get in some big numbers, but the Idea Center, give me the idea really behind it.
Yeah, so Notre Dame over the last 10 years has really been transforming itself to be a Tier 1 research university. And it realized that if it was really going to have the impact that it wanted, it would need to be able to commercialize those technologies. So it created all of those in one place: commercialization, Innovation Park, which is the real estate part of this, and all of the other components around commercialization.
The success in year one is substantial. Your target was 16 startups from faculty or students. You did 27. Actually, in the entire history of the university, 33 startups have been launched, right? So you took a big chunk out of that in just 1 year.
Yeah, we did. And it was, there's a lot of pent-up demand among students and faculty for this kind of help. But there was also, once we applied the process, it was interesting the technologies that we were able to get our hands on and work with and the results that came out of those.
So give us an idea. 27 startups, about half of those, I think, in healthcare.
That's right.
IT and some other areas sprinkled in there. But can you give us a kind of a sense of the startups?
Yeah, we've got startups in big data analytics, cancer research and technologies, a lot of therapeutics and med device, as well as engineering and software. So kind of across the whole gamut.
I think it's very important to underscore, the success that the Idea Center is enjoying, and more broadly, Notre Dame's engagement in economic development and really connecting with the economy in northern Indiana, by extension, certainly the state of Indiana, real positive in that regard.
Yeah, it is, and it's needed. I mean, for Notre Dame to really accomplish its mission and goals, it needs the community to also transform. And we're trying to create an ecosystem there that will drive economic growth and development far into the future.
And as you look at the success you're having and other initiatives Notre Dame launching there, what that does to extend innovation outside of central Indiana, to make sure it's not just an Indianapolis thing, but there are some real big stories around the state.
Yeah, and you think about different places like Purdue and West Lafayette, you think about everything that's going on in Indianapolis, and now to have a real motor going on up in this north central Indiana, and then to tie those together, I think it bodes well for what's happening in Indiana.
I want to ask you about some breaking news here in a moment, but Idea Week. Yeah. This is a big thing. You started it last year, and you talk about success. You expected maybe a couple thousand folks, and tell us about Idea Week.
Yeah, we had 18,000 people come together for that, so it was a tremendous opportunity to just celebrate innovation and entrepreneurship in that region. We had big name concerts and comedians and lots of fun. Looking forward to it next year.
When you look at Idea Week and you look at what you're doing at the Idea Center and the other things, it's kind of like a snowball kind of rolling downhill. There seems to be momentum behind your efforts.
Yeah, it's definitely a virtuous cycle. The more that we can create an opportunity, the more entrepreneurs we'll get, the more capital will come in, the more businesses will show up. So all of that's going to build on itself.
And speaking of capital, you have just launched a $25 million fund there at the university. Talk about that.
This is really groundbreaking for universities in general. Very few actually run a fund as the general partner, which we're doing, which will allow us to invest in all these companies.
Wow, $25 million fund. A lot going on at the Idea Center and at the University of Notre Dame. Brian Ritchie, great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to having you back again, and we'll be up at Idea Week.
Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thanks, Gary.
Thanks a lot.
Later in the podcast, an orthopedics maker is on a unique mission, and Indiana paves the way for graduation pathways. But now, Luna Language Service offers interpreting translation services in more than 200 spoken languages and American Sign Language. Clients include the state of Indiana, IU, Purdue, and Pepsi. President Marina Waters joined us for our business spotlight.
Luna, founded by a different name way back in 2001. Fast forward to today. Talk about the language services, the globalization of the economy, and certainly we're seeing that so much here in Indiana. Talk about how that's impacted Luna's business.
Yeah, well, Luna was founded with a mission of language access and having foreign-born immigrants coming to here, giving them services to access the public sector, hospitals, courts, schools, and as we've seen immigration really continue to roll in, and you've probably seen those statistics. I mean, they're outstanding. They're very remarkable. Businesses have sought out our services to not only expand their services and products out to those sectors, but to help with their workforce.
Yeah, well, talk about that, because I think that's an interesting piece of the evolution is you're going from services, which obviously you continue to provide, but looking at companies trying to attract and keep that multicultural workforce.
Absolutely. So, we started really responding to an immediate language need, but now we're looking at partnering with companies and organizations and really going in and planning ahead and looking at how is this a business, where's the business case for this, for embracing diversity. It's a hot topic these days, but really looking at how a multicultural workforce can strengthen a business. You have more languages available inside of your organization, more cultural approaches. And how can a company really adapt to that change so people can thrive?
Yeah, and especially in a very tight labor market now, generally speaking, across all sectors. But then you layer in the fact that this focus on a multicultural workforce would seem to really up the demand for your services. It
does. And if you look, you probably are aware, back in April, we saw a tipping point with our job statistics, right? So our unemployment rates are going down and our jobs are going up, and our available workforce, if you look at those stats going forward, it is the foreign-born immigrants coming in that are going to be the most available workforce for our businesses. So we need to help them be ready for that.
Talk a little bit about Luna Language Services. You're in growth mode, 4 expansions in the last 7 years. You've got a diverse group of customers and clients. Talk a little bit about Luna.
Yeah, Luna is a really special place. Thank you for asking. We've had tremendous growth really ever since the business was founded, but over the last, I would say, 5 years, we are really rolling, and part of it is our staff, our incredible staff. I'm really proud we won a diversity award from the mayor in 2017, but part of it is our company walks its talk. We are hiring from the immigrant group, from the refugee groups, and really looking at how we can be a model for other companies on how to do that right.
Yeah. Where do you see, we only about 30 seconds left, Marina, but where do you see growth opportunities? Newly named president, you've been with the company for 12 years. Where do you see the company going?
I want to be a model for other businesses around Indianapolis, around the state, and around the nation. We can show how creating a culturally rich company can really help make a case for business growth. And in the future, we are going to be expanding more of our services nationwide.
Marina Waters from Luna, thanks very much.
Remember, you can catch Inside Indiana Business Television on stations throughout the state every weekend. Head to InsideIndianaBusiness.com to check listings. Still to come, educators and business leaders come together for graduation pathways and another effort to make sports safer. But first, about $500,000 worth of Indiana-made orthopedic devices are now in Guatemala. Zimmer Biomet is supplying artificial knees for doctors there. Zimmer Biomet Vice President Todd Davis joined health reporter Kylie Valletta to talk about the partnership.
Tell us first how your company has traditionally donated implants. It's usually been a one-off agreement, and tell us a little bit the hiccups that caused.
Sure, yes. We've done this for years, for decades, but we handle them as one-off events. The organization submits a request to our organization. We evaluate what they need from us, make sure that they're a legitimate 501c3 charitable organization, and then we donate the implants that they've asked for, but only those implants they ask for, and then we try our best to find instrumentation that has to accompany those implants for that trip. And you mentioned the hiccups. The hiccups are sometimes we can't find the instrumentation that's necessary. And they may have their entire team lined up with surgeons, nurses, anesthesiologists, and they may get to their destination and those implants or instruments haven't arrived yet. And so that's been some of the challenges of that historical system and a system that we still use today for the most part.
So this new model that your division is doing is it's your first long-term commitment. How is this new model of providing the implants different, and how could it make a more meaningful impact?
Yes, so it is very different. This is a 2-year commitment with an opportunity for the parties to re-up at the end of that 2-year period. But in essence, what we're going to do is give them a full bank of inventory. So this is total knee replacements, and instead of asking for the 20 knee replacements that they would ask for, we're going to give them a whole year's worth of inventory right up front, and we're going to donate 3 sets of instruments that they will get to house in Guatemala and keep there. And really what that allows them to do is now plan those trips and not have to worry about whether the donation will be accepted and whether or not those implants and instruments will arrive in time for that surgery. And
partners are with Faith in Practice. So all of these total knee implants are manufactured in northern Indiana, which is really neat. And just, a frame of reference, a single knee in the U.S. costs about $5,000. So what Zimmer Biomet is providing has a very significant dollar value. It really does, yes. We'll supply about 100 inventory to do about 100 knees, and then instrumentation to go along with that. So it's very significant. It's in the $500,000 range, and then we will restock that inventory after every trip. It's impressive. So each mission trip, you send some of your team members, Hoosiers here from Warsaw, go along to Guatemala. Why do you send them, and what do they do when they're there? Well, I think what they do there is less important than what they get out of that trip. And why I say that is they get to go to Guatemala and help deliver care to people that live in abject poverty. It gives us an impression and an understanding about how lucky we are to be Hoosiers, to live here in the United States. And we get the opportunity to just see how we change the lives of people that would not have this opportunity if not for our implants, our instruments. But what they do when they go there is they're subject matter experts. They know our instrument system inside and out. They know the implant designs. And we have surgeons that may be attending that don't understand our implants or don't use our instruments in their practice in the United States. So we go and facilitate those surgeries and really make sure that the surgeons, the surgical team, and the patients have the best experience that they can. And knee replacements are commonplace in the U.S., but this is not a typical procedure in Guatemala, right? It is not, Kylie. No. Here in the United States, very typical. We do almost 1 million hip and knee replacements in the United States every year. In Guatemala, if you're wealthy enough, you leave Guatemala to go probably to the United States to have your joint replaced. And you haven't been yet, but you're hoping to go soon. That's correct, yes. Next trip is October. I can't attend that one, but I'll be going the first trip in 2019. All right, well, Todd, thanks for being here today and sharing the project with us. Some Hoosier-made devices going to a great cause. Thank you, Kylie.
Later in the podcast, new research on sports safety and perspective on the week's top stories from our panel of insiders. But now, the Indiana State Board of Education has approved the framework for graduation pathways. The program was developed by education and business leaders. Board member Dr. Byron Ernest has more in our Eye on Education segment.
First of all, the graduation pathways, the board approved them after a lot of discussion back and forth, approved in December. Schools can implement now, but they're mandated to do it in 2023.
That is correct.
Yeah. Let's talk about these pathways, because we hear a lot about workforce alignment. This really gets at, I think, in a lot of ways, aligning students with careers and the education they'll need to go a certain pathway.
Yeah, we know right now when we look at Indiana, we know that we're going to have 62% of our population for jobs that are available are going to need to have some type of post-secondary training. So we know that needs to start at the secondary level or high school level. And so therefore, those are put in place to begin to get the students directed in the way that they want. It really is about student choice, what the student wants to do.
So, and again, this gets away from a standardized or a test as being a part of graduation, more to these pathways.
Right. No longer does a student have to pass a single test that employers told us, universities told us. That really doesn't tell us the success or the preparedness of the student. That doesn't mean that I don't believe believe that we need some gauge of knowing that students have the basic information, but no longer is that the case for just graduating.
Talk about how this will work, and talk about the support or the input, the feedback you receive from the business community in putting this together.
The business community is really excited about this from the standpoint that one component of the pathways are employability skills, and so they really like that piece of it, because that's where they say, teamwork, the showing up, and that's going to be a part of this that schools are giving experience with, and workplace experience. And then also, we're beginning to look at how do we have, with these pathways, the business and industry help us develop what should the students be learning, who best to be telling us that than the business and industry that's going to be hiring the person.
How do you answer, because there was pushback at the time, some felt as though counselors may be overworked, some question funding, those types of things. How do you answer those? This is going to happen, but how do you answer the critics who are out there?
I think first off, the answer was this is what's best for students. So that was the first piece. Those things will have to be figured out, but it's going to be systemic, that we're going to have to even start earlier at the younger ages to do some workforce engagement and exposure, career exploration with that. So some of that's going to have to look different, but when you really look at it, we're also freeing up some of what I've called all along the remediation factory of students who couldn't pass a test, who then had to be remediated. And now we're going to be doing worthwhile things with them.
Right, and I know workforce, of course, is such a huge issue in the state of Indiana. I know you believe that this whole process has engaged and started conversations with important folks, the business community, and really trying to align and engage with folks like that.
Yes, and since these have passed, I've spent a lot of my time working with business and industry on how do we have the conversations with schools to build the partnerships that are necessary. And it's amazing to me that the business industry manufacturing community has really taken hold of this of, hey, we're ready for this. And we need to be talking the same language, where that's been a tough process, right? We talk education lingo, they talk business, and really bringing that together. And that was one of the things we really realized during the Pathways process when we were doing the panel with all that. We began to be able to talk the same language.
Very good. Graduation pathways on the way. Dr. Byron Ernest from the Indiana State Board of Education. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Still to come, our panel of insiders weighs in on the top stories of the week. But first, NFL training camps are underway, putting the safety of the sport again into the spotlight. The Purdue Neurotrauma Group has been studying brain changes in high school football players since 2009. Mechanical engineering professor Eric Nauman and Purdue MRI facility co-director Tom Talavage joined Bill Benner in Inside Indiana Sports to talk about the group's latest research.
Tom, let's start with you. Most journeys begin with the single step. Your single step was 10 years ago. What led you down this path?
So we started the Purdue Neurotrauma Group as a collaboration between our engineering faculty and some members of the athletic training team. We've grown to include members of health and human sciences, and our focus began with working from what causes concussion and ultimately has led us to be looking at how do we prevent this in the future.
And we've got some great props here because we see what it was in the beginning. We see what it is today. Great strides, obviously, in helmet technology, but a long way to go. Eric, talk about the next evolution and how it could possibly lead to the elimination of head injuries.
So I think the next stage in this is not only creating kind of a helmet that absorbs more energy, that has kind of a crumple zone that goes with it, but sensor technology integrated into the helmet. It doesn't have to be expensive, but our research over the last 10 years has shown that if we can keep these hits below 50 Gs, we can actually stave off most of the accumulation of injury, and we can do that. The technology exists to do that.
Yeah, explain and show. Hold the sensor up a little bit.
Sure.
You embed these into the helmets.
Well, yeah. So right now they actually glue behind the ear, but we can integrate these into the helmets. We can wire them together. There's mouthguard sensors that we've used in the past. We can couple those different technologies into one relatively inexpensive suite that that allows the coaches to understand what's happening to each player and coach them, teach them how to be safe.
Okay, and again, we have the heads-up tackling. I mean, there's a lot of emphasis on head injuries. Mothers and fathers across the country are generally concerned. What do you, once you collect, Tom, when you collect this data, what happens next? What do you do with it?
So we're essentially looking for changes in the brain as a function of exposure. How many times are the kids being hit? How hard are they being hit? We're trying to determine which changes are associated with which blows. And what we've ultimately found is that when the kids are taking a lot of blows that exceed 50 G, 50 times the force of gravity, that's when we start to see changes, which means that if we can make the protective equipment such that the vast majority of the blows the kids experience in any of these contact sports are below 50 G, we shouldn't see those brain changes, and we should be looking at safer sports.
And Eric, you are convinced that you are on the threshold of producing the football helmet that would make it a safe game.
Absolutely, and there might be multiple ways to do it, but we can definitely get to the point where we keep these hits below 50 Gs.
And I want to add quickly, you're also other sports, you have technologies that could apply to other sports, soccer, lacrosse, hockey even.
Absolutely, absolutely. Those, if we can fix football, the others fall right in line.
This is absolutely fascinating, and I think that the NFL, the NCAA, the National Federation, high school, they all should be taking a look at this. Quickly, Tom, as we wrap up, to learn more about this, where would one go?
So if you just go online and you look for the Purdue Neurotrauma Group via Google or go to purdue.edu/research/PNG, you'll find our research there.
All right, Tom Talavich, Eric Nauman, best of luck, because again, this is football is popular today. That's no guarantee that will be popular forever, and we want to make it safe forever.
And finally, our latest panel of insiders takes on the top business stories in Indiana. This week's panel includes Trendy Minds president and CEO Trevor Yeager, education expert Robert Herzog, and Kiwanis Youth Programs executive director Christina Hale.
And we start with a big story this week. We had earlier in the show the Heritage Group, a well-known but privately closely held company, Robert, for many, many years, since the 1930s. Very successful in infrastructure and aggregates and oil and gas. This week announcing plans to launch a corporate venture capital arm, $50 million very quickly. They think, though, they could be investing $400 million into small and growth-oriented companies over the next 5 years.
A couple of things, right? One is, like you mentioned, the Faisenfelds, the family that has really founded this and has been around Indianapolis since early 20th century. Great to see them, taking this jump into having this kind of investment. And as we know, we talked about on this show before too, any sort of new venture capital into Indiana and Indianapolis, which we've been undervalued and underfunded for years, is a great way to go. So really happy to see this.
Hired a very high-profile person to lead this, Kip Fry, who most recently led the innovation and entrepreneurship initiatives at Duke Universities. He's headed up 7 companies as CEO startups. And he made the point, Christina, that he sees opportunity in the Midwest, and that necessarily the coasts aren't necessarily where it's happening, but that growth is in Indianapolis and the Midwest, where entrepreneurial ecosystems are really beginning to grow.
Absolutely, and in places like North Carolina or California, they've been there, done that. This is a new place, and we're finally beginning to get it with the Regional Cities Initiative, with connectivity. People are talking about, connecting, double tracking the South Shore. All of these things are in place, but, we just attracted incredible talent in him, the person, but also the evidence is very clear. Employment in Indiana in the next 50 years is going to come from the growth of small and medium-sized businesses. We just landed a gold mine, literally.
Yep. I like that it's a wide range, too, that they're looking for. Yep. They're investing in entrepreneurship and small business. It's not just a tech investment, which we see lots of, and those are great as well. But it's nice to see that Indiana is made up of lots of companies. We hear it all the time that there's a lot of those sleeping giants, so to speak, that are 100, 200, $300 million companies that may sell and kind of fly on the radar. So this is great to see others that may not have that bend towards technology, but they can say, hey, there's a lot of things we can do here. And there's a lot of need inside the state.
And a lot of communities around the state doing things in their downtown to revitalize, to attract talent. To your point, Christina, Shindigs is a party supply company based in South Whitley County, announced plans this week to move, a big move to shift its headquarters to Fort Wayne, where there's a lot going on. And they said it's a talent play. For them to be able to attract and to keep talent, they've got to move to a place like Fort Wayne.
Absolutely. And Mayor Henry's done a tremendous job thinking through lifestyle and what it means for young talent to come there, and mediumly old talent and even older talent. You know, people want to be in a walkable place, access to the arts, fun things to do, coffee shops, and it's all right there on a human scale, and it's very affordable.
Yeah, relatively inexpensive. You know, the further regionalization and urbanization continues, you know, we all know unabated in Fort Wayne and other, you know, what we consider smaller regional communities around Indiana, so really good to see.
And a lot more projects in the pipeline in downtown Fort Wayne as well. Trevor, and this kind of relates back to the first story with the Heritage Group and giving back to community and focus on community, that kind of thing. But Salesforce, regional headquarters, one of 4 towers in that multinational company's portfolio. The Ohana floor 47, they just unveiled it this week. Very unique. No corporate offices up there. This is for entertaining and in many respects giving back to the community.
Definitely. It's part of their, Salesforce is the Pledge One Foundation that they started. It's very much a mantra from Mark Benioff all the way through every employee that's there. I think they do a great job at connecting with the community, not only getting their team involved and their greater employees involved in the community, but also inviting the community in to be part of them. This is just a representative of who they are as people, and I think it's just awesome to have them here, and this floor is going to be well received by lots of different organizations.
Absolutely. And they also get it that it's not just about business, it's connecting with the community, as you said, bringing them in, but also supporting the arts, supporting community development, just doing philanthropic good where they are in their building, and that's great business.
Yep. Education in the news this week as well. We'll get our education expert in here to talk about Ball State beginning test optional admissions, which is what kind of...
I mean, basically they're saying, hey, we don't require, ACT or SAT exams like most of, 80% of higher ed runs on in the 18 to 22-year-old space. So it's a move by a lot of, it starting to hear about it. DePaul moved to this, a couple other regional universities to try and diversify economically, right, and across all of, potential students that may come in. Hopefully it'll work for Ball State. I think we've seen kind of mixed results across the country, but Ball State is in a really good position, and there should be no downside for them on this.
That'll be great, though, for those kids that can't do well with standardized testing. I was one of them. Every answer looked right to me. So that would have been really helpful for me back in the day.
Gotcha. Well, that's a public university, obviously, a private university, Anderson University. And John Pistol, the president there, came out with a strategic plan and basically talked about 4 pillars. And you're an Anderson grad, right?
I am, yes.
So your thoughts on the vision that he has for the university?
I have a lot of respect with President Pistol. I think he's doing some great things, and he's taking the university to new areas, which is needed. Anderson is different from when I went there 20-something years ago, and I think what he's done with new programs being offered for incoming students and students that are there to help them find jobs when they get out is so important. A lot of universities are having to do the same thing, so I think him connecting in, getting into the community more is going to be important. As Christina and I have talked about many times, that you have to connect. You can't just be isolated. That's there.
Yeah, I want to talk about another big event, a big convention, one of the biggest in the entire state, and perhaps one of the funnest conventions, if you will. Gen Con is back. The president told us this week that they're hopeful that they can keep Gen Con here for a long, long time. They're here through 2022, and efforts are underway to do that.
Oh, it's just so much fun. It's a great time to be in Indianapolis, sitting downtown. One of my favorite things to do is sit in Mikado. It's almost like anime come alive. You've got all of these people in costume, and it's just phenomenal. So great for the city in our pocketbooks, and also just the fun factor gets really amped up.
Okay, I throw this out before we leave. We have to talk about Netflix announcing a Madam Walker series, limited series. Madam C.J. Walker will star Oscar winner Octavia Spencer. She'll be one of the executive producers alongside LeBron James.
Superb to get this story told nationally, to get it out on Netflix. Can't wait to see this, and that story needs to be told by, and seen by many, many more people. So great to see that Netflix is spending some of its billions of dollars that they're funding.
And hopefully we'll get maybe some filming here.
We hope so. Certainly Film Indy is hoping so. We've been working on trying to attract, film production here, especially to tell some of our most important Hoosier stories.
Very good. Christina Hale. Also, Robert Herzog and Trevor Yeager. Thank you, one and all.
That wraps up this week's Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. Remember, you can find all of this week's TV segments, as well as the top business news from throughout the state, at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. While you're there, you can also subscribe to our platform of free e-newsletters. This is Andy Ober for Inside Indiana Business.